I'm Molly. I work at Disability Rights Texas. For those of you who are not aware of who Disability Rights Texas is, so each state has what's called a protection advocacy agency. We are the one for Texas. Long, non-lawyery story, explanation short. We are a civil rights agency that exists to help protect the civil rights of people with disabilities. That is a little bit of everything. We've been around since like 1975. We serve the entire state of Texas. So we have offices all over the place, and all of our staff pretty much travel all over the place. So we cover everything from, I like to tell people, if you have been denied a service based upon your disability status, come talk to us and see if we can help you out. So if you've been denied housing because you have low vision and there's not like an accommodating apartment for you or something on the first floor and you're in a wheelchair and there's no elevator, that's maybe when we can talk to see about like what some options are. Or in this case, if you're voting, and I know you didn't see that one coming, if you're voting, yeah. So I like this one already. And let's say you're voting and someone has decided that you look like you have a disability and they decided you can't vote. That's when someone will come and call our voter hotline. They'll talk to myself or Belinda and say, this is what's going down. Belinda and I will contact that county in real time and try to solve the problem. So we are there to make sure people get what they need to get. These are my mandatory DRTX slides. So this kind of covers everything we do. Transportation, voting, housing, healthcare, education is a big one, employment, like for accommodations, things like that, guardianship. So, we're fun. We're a good time. So, why are we here? Why is Disability Rights Texas here? Why are we talking to you? Well, first of all, we're cheap. We're free. We don't cost anything. So that's why they called us. Second of all, we're estimating, it's hard to get exact numbers because it's not something you have to disclose, but we estimate based upon US Census records and state population and all the fancy formulas, we're estimating there's about 2 million registered voters with disabilities in the state of Texas. So that's why we're here, because it's a large block of the voting group, and so we gotta ensure that everybody can cast their ballot. So here we are. We're in 2024, about 1.3 Texans with disabilities voted in the presidential election. According to our fancy math and calculations, in El Paso County, there's probably about 60,000 registered voters with disabilities in this county. So that's why we're here, because El Paso is a great county. The elections team is amazing that they want to ensure that everybody has the access to cast their ballot, and successfully. And I will give props to El Paso because we go all over the state, and y'all are great. You're very enthusiastic about accommodations and including everybody. They got a fancy Cleary Award if you missed that earlier this year. Yeah, about providing the right types of tools for voters with low vision or who are completely blind. This is the part where you clap. Yes, there you go. So you're working with a great group of people in this common goal that you have to help people cast their ballots. So we all have rights. Everybody wants to be treated in a non-discriminatory way. We all want to cast our ballot by ourselves if we can. So that's what we're here to do. We just have a common goal. You're here because you want to help people vote. That's what we want, so let's all do it together. What our goals are for today. Basically just ensuring, like we said, each voter, regardless of their support need, has the ability to cast their ballot privately, independently, and without a lot of trouble. What we're hoping everybody does, what I know everybody will do, because it's El Paso, everybody will respond appropriately and respectfully to these voters and have a better insight into what voter accommodations and rights are for those who need them. So, fun time. All right, pop quiz. First question. This is where you're going to raise your hand and we're going to have to interact, so I won't call on you. True or false? There are certain disabilities that will disqualify you from being able to vote. Okay, she raised her hand. So she'll get a piece of candy. How do you feel about suckers?
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. See, now y'all are going to start talking because there's candy. But overall, it was false, it sounded like, so that's a good answer. That's correct. True or false? You can ask a person for information about their disability. Yes. Oh, this one. What? Okay. All right. Good job, everybody. We may have to get Dollar General to bring more candy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Another bag. True or false? Curbside voting is only for people with physical disabilities. False. Okay. Oh. Did you get... I'm just going to throw the whole bucket and y'all just go. Here you go.
Thank you.
Did you give them the answers before we came in? Okay. They studied. I see. You gave them the book beforehand. Okay. Yeah. Hey.
Some really good trainers.
That's what it is. Yeah, I think so.
You get a candy.
There you go, the candy. There you go. And that's why he gets that big corner cube in the office. Cool. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. Basic guidelines of creating an area that's respectful of everybody's everything. People first language. Are y'all familiar with that term? It was really big for a while. Generally speaking, I get a lot of questions like, well, how do I address this person? What do I say? And I generally say, call them by their name. Everybody has a different way they like to identify themselves. If you're not familiar with that and nobody has said, I prefer you say this term instead of that term, you can always use people first language first. So that means focusing on the individual and not the disability. So, yes, sir.
When you said that, I work as a teacher, but we don't say, can your son do this? Or we speak to the person instead of whoever's bringing them in.
Perfect. Yes, that is excellent. So, talking to the individual instead of like if they have an assistant or an aide with them, talking to that individual and not their caregiver. Well, see? So let's say there's someone with cerebral palsy, and I was like, the cerebral palsy person over there, that lady, the cerebral palsy lady, she's gasping. I can hear the gasps. I love it. So what would we say instead of that? Does anybody have any thoughts? Yeah, the voter, or Susie, or whatever. Or you could say that person who has cerebral palsy, if that's something, But we never focus solely on, because we all have parts of our personalities that are a small part of who we are. It doesn't make up the entire thing. So I think, it's just like that with everybody else, especially in the disability community. We're so much more than just one part of our lives, Now, if you wanted to call me the beautiful girl, I'm fine with that.
Is that a disability?
It could be. It could be. It's really hard sometimes. It's just everywhere I go. People ask for my phone number. I can't get anything done. There are ways, people's identities and the way that we use language is constantly changing, and so. If a person of my age may find, I don't know, I was grown up saying, learning that a certain word is not appropriate to use, but now somebody may be trying to take ownership of that word. It's like we never try to use the word cripple, but that's a really big word that's being brought back. Like people are taking ownership of it, and so there's things like that. Or I've learned in the blind community, it's they take ownership of the blindness. So it's not like, visual impairment or low vision. They're like, no, it's blind. Just say it, So every community is different, it just depends. General rule, it's that golden rule, just, treat others as you want to be treated. I think we all know that one. Talking about, ask if it's important, ask them how they want to be identified, things like that. Just ask. That's always my golden rule. Invisible disabilities are, important to talk about. When we talk about invisible disabilities, do you all know what that slogan means? Or slogan, language, jargon? Yeah. So that can be a little tricky, but generally speaking, it's disabilities that we can't see. Oh, we kind of talked about that. So speak directly. Yes, sir.
Can you go back
I
to your
can.
slide?
Yes.
Okay. Most people just want to be called by their first name.
Yes.
We're, the majority of us here are Hispanic.
Yes.
And we are taught
Right.
to go by the last name.
Yeah, absolutely.
of the person.
Yes. That's a
If
good
they
point.
then say, no, call me Juan.
Yeah.
Then you do.
Absolutely. That is a very good point. I should change that slide. Thank you.
The culture varies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever applies to whatever you like,
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
situation, that's what you're going to use.
That's great. Yes, sir.
We have a built-in advantage here. We have their driver's license.
There you
There's
go.
their name on it.
There you go.
It's nothing to matter, and I know that from 40 years ago till now,
Right.
Ms. is the proper
Oh, okay.
for a female, right?
Yeah.
It still could be Mr. for God, or
Right, whatever.
same.
Yeah.
But now the preferred, or has been for the last several decades, it's not Miss or Mrs., it's Ms.
Right.
So I think that universally, if we go with Mr. and Ms., we're going to be fine.
There you go. Yeah, and I think you're right. And it depends on where you are. There's different, cultures have different things, and because I grew up with the Mr. and Miss and the last name, but if I went somewhere else, they'd be like, oh no, call me Jane. Or you could be like Miss Jane or Mr., so there's that as well. That's right, yeah. I know, it's a lot of back and forth. It's hard to keep up with, but that's a good point. Thank y'all for that. You also get something for talking out. Good job.
Now, is this a politically correct, non-diabetic, non-sugar lollipop? Huh?
We'll find out.
No.
Yeah,
Are you? Is this a subliminal message that you're?
do you want it to be a subliminal message?
No, but
Okay, there you go. I'm also going to walk this way because I know the camera angle is this way. And there's so many shots of my rear that we can only stand.
if I should choke on this, are you covered?
I am CPR certified. I got you. I'm ready. That's what I do. That's right. They're on it. Speak directly to the voter. We kind of talked about that already. You touched base with that. If someone brings a companion, an interpreter, an aide of some sort, speak directly with that person. I like to tell a story of I was working at a job fair, and I was serving as a sighted guide for individuals. And so my job was to take them to table to table and let them know what was happening. And so I did that at one location, and I was like, here we are, this is such and such company, blah, blah, blah. And the person at the table started talking to me about like, what is this? I already had a job, I wasn't job searching. But the person I was with was, and they started asking me all these questions about him, and I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm not the person. Talk to him. And so from that, he's like, I'm not gonna apply there. It's like, I wouldn't blame you. So it's little things like that. I think it's easy, especially if it's an interpreter, to look at that individual when you're talking to them. But they are, they know that you're not supposed to look at them, so it's not a big deal. So let's be polite. Apparently, greet everybody with a smile if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, that's fine too. Just don't maybe spit on them. Try not to. Let's do some accommodations for the voters. Some voters may prefer to communicate in written language rather than verbal, and that's fine. Just maybe have like a pad and paper available if that's something. Or, if you cannot understand somebody and it takes a couple times, it's okay to ask over and over again for clarification, because the whole goal of communication is to get your point across. And if it's not being understood, the goal hasn't been achieved. So ask as many times as you need to. And if they need to write it down, ask them to write it down. So that would be easier. And it's hard, because I've interacted with people. Belinda slurs all the time. And I'm like, Belinda, I don't know what you're saying. Get it together. So write it down. And it's okay to do that. I mean, that's the goal, is to get your point across. And if you're not getting your point across, the mission has not been achieved. The golden rule, it's so fancy. I put a very generic scroll picture on the slide. The golden rule, just treat everybody how you want to be treated. I think that's what it boils down to. That's what we all I think that's what we all project. That's the vibe I get from y'all. So do that and you should all be good. This is also something, this is a story. If you've heard me talk before, you've heard the story, but it's such a good story. I'm going to say it again. Treat extension devices as part of the voter. So I have this favorite story of, I had a boss one time who had some physical disabilities, which led her to use a scooter from time to time. So in the office space, she had a motorized scooter that she would use. And sometimes she used it, sometimes she didn't, and it was parked by her office. So someone was retiring, and so they were having a retirement party for that individual, and it was like after hours in the office building. This is not contingent upon that email that you saw this morning. It was at another place of employment, but there were, it was a party, so there had been wine and whatever. And so somebody, a new hire, I guess was on the right floor of my boss. Anyway, he walked past there. I saw him walk through the doors and whatever. And then I saw him come out riding her scooter. Yeah! Why is that a horrible idea? There's so many reasons, yes. And I wasn't a fan of the guy. I was like, he's gonna get fired. But he didn't. So I guess it was a learning opportunity for him. So that being said, it was horrible because that was part of my boss's, that was an important tool to her. It's a part of her. You don't just grab people. First of all, it's a basic rule. You don't use people's things without asking. Second of all, that's how she gets around. If you were to break it or bust it, that's a big part of, that's going to impede her daily functioning. And it was just a stupid choice. So that's what I talk about is I think people think, oh, how fun, it'll be a scooter. Or Belinda, you went to Disney World the other week with her family, and I was talking about how we were talking about commiserating. How many people have been to Disney World or a big theme park? How many of y'all's feet hurt after that? Exactly. So we were commiserating about, I was like, last time I went, I thought my feet were gonna fall off the first day. And the next day, I was really eyeing those scooters that you could rent out. But I knew better, they weren't for me, so I refrained. But yeah, it's also stuff like that, like how many times you go to a grocery store, and if you don't usually use a scooter, you're like, but that would be so sweet just to ride around and put your groceries there. But it's not meant for me. So even like restrooms, it's hard with we both have small kids, and so it's hard with small kids not to take the big stall in the bathroom and just be like, hey, we're gonna have a party in here, it'll be great. And I have to remember, I'm like, those stalls aren't for us. Because knowing my luck, my kid's gonna spend 20 minutes in that stall, and there's someone who's actually going to need it. So we try to, be mindful of that as well. So don't try to take control of anybody's device or lean on anything. Our general rule is I like, if possible, if someone is in a wheelchair and I gotta converse with them a lot, if their line of vision is lower than mine, I'll try to lower my vision to theirs. Because everybody will get tired of doing that after a while. Types of assisted devices, it can range. It could be canes, it could be scooters, wheelchairs, hearing aids, prosthetic devices. What's that? Oxygen tanks. There you go. An alphabet board or a speaking board. No offense, ma'am, I'm going to pick on you a little bit, but I bet she would be really pissed off if I started to grab her cane and just kind of started swinging it around everywhere. If there was a fly right there, I'd grab it and just try to smack the fly and kill it. That might be a little weird. Or she might be really happy that I killed the fly. It was huge. What's that? Don't touch, and the dogs, service animals. They're working, don't touch them. Good point. So that's important too. They're working, don't touch them, and yeah, just generally easier. Yes, sir?
At our our polling place, we provide a water dish for
Oh,
dogs.
that's nice, yeah.
Well, you know, percentage of voters is so low. People are going to walk their dogs in the neighborhood. That, you know,
Right.
You know, just offering a little bit of something, especially if it's a really warm.
Yes, absolutely. Don't give them a piece of your what? Oh yeah. Don't share the burritos or the tacos. They'll just want it all. It'll be awkward. You got to fight over food. It's weird. Our Austin office serves as a polling site, and Austin's a pretty big dog town. Like, people go everywhere with their dogs, and people will, because we're Disability Rights Texas, we're like, service animals can come in, but not just like non-service animals. Well, people during voting, it's kind of a different game for us, because sometimes they're walking their dog and they'll see the polling site and they'll just want to come vote. And sometimes we have those questions like, oh, are we going to, because they'll come in through our lobby with our staff, and then they come into another room where the election staff is. And it's like, oh, what do we do about this? Our general rule is we try to just create as least conflict as possible. I'm like, just let them in. If it's a problem, they'll be asked to leave and whatever. That's, I think, the general rule of thumb. The least amount of conflict as possible is probably the name of the game. Here we go. Politely ignore the service animals. Like we said, if they're working, don't bother them. They're there to do a job. It's not a pet. Service, because we get a lot of questions about this. Service animals are not required to wear certain potential identifying things. They don't have to wear a vest or a badge. They don't necessarily require training papers or certification. So you can't always identify them right away. This is also an extension of the owner, like you said. And these service animals may be used for something that isn't apparent. We go back to that invisible disability talk. Like if you are someone who, lives with PTSD, and that's probably really big in this community because you have a base right here. Or not, I'm assuming. That's horrible of me. But it's a thing. And so that animal could be there to help calm that individual, or someone with epilepsy, if they can, dogs, I don't know, their noses are great. They can smell that sort of thing. So if they smell something coming on, they may have to go do their job. So we don't know what happens. But handle every situation professionally and politely. Sometimes I'll get questions of like, what if the dog, is unruly? Or when can I ask the dog to, First of all, you can only ask for a service animal, like, what is their job? Like, what are they here to help you do, if you need to ask? And then second of all, the only time we can really ask a service animal to leave is if they're being unruly. So like if they're just barking and it's not for a purpose other than what their job is. And the owner, the voter will know. But if they're just like, they're humping the neighbor's leg, that's probably not part of the deal. So that maybe you can ask them to leave, let the animal calm down, and then the individual can come back, or the animal can wait outside. The Department of Justice, Americans with Disabilities Act says that service animals are dogs and not like cats or anything else, snakes or anything like that, chickens. As my 6-year-old wants me to believe, the fish that she has is not a service animal for her. Yeah, that's right. The chicken, what is it? She wants me to get her a snake. So the snake is not going to be a service animal. Yes, ma'am.
Question for you
Yes.
concerning that.
Okay.
This past election, we had a little problem.
Yes.
concerning- One was a service dog, another wasn't. Apparently, they came in, they were together, but they came in to vote.
Right.
And the service dog was very calm and everything. The other dog, the lady told me it was a service dog. I didn't say anything.
Right.
We were just looking. But then the dog started to attack the service dog. And we didn't like started, and they pulled away. We had to just push away and,
Yeah.
let him,
Do their
put
thing,
the
yeah.
first voter and let this one wait. But then between the both voters, they started discussing, this is, my dog is a service dog and I didn't know, but this dog wouldn't stop barking. So finally, we were looking at each other. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. I said, shall I tell her to go outside and then come back and vote? So, I said, maybe I'm stepping on the wrong.
Right.
And they were already, it was a little hot, the problem was it got a little bit bitter and hot with, the voters.
Yeah.
And they told me, aren't you gonna do anything? And that's what I decided. I said, okay, I think I need to take. And I told the lady, she left, but she never came back to vote. She was very upset.
Well, that's her choice. I'd
And
say,
that's what I went to her. It's okay, we can, because the dog won't stop barking.
right.
We have voters voting, plus we had a line.
This is a great example, and I saw this happen at our polling site too. So if you didn't hear, the example was there were two people with dogs. One of the animals had been identified as a service animal. The other one not so much. They were standing in line. The dogs started going after each other, and it was weird. And then it kind of created the owners to start fighting, and maybe it made it just weird for the other voters. And so the question was, what do we do? And it sounds like you handled it perfectly. You ask, they were being disruptive. They weren't, it was being a problem. And so you asked one of them, take your dog outside, or if you can put it somewhere and you can come back to vote, you're welcome to do that. That individual who you asked to leave, chose not to come back and vote, and that's fine, that's on them. But you did everything perfectly, I think. Yeah, so good job, because we had that too. There were two people with animals, like dogs, and I think one was a service dog and maybe one wasn't, but they started to kind of bark at each other, and so we kind of made it a little more separate. And we said, if you can stand over here to where they're not going to fight, and we'll save your spot in line. And then when it's time to check in, you can check in. There's that as well. But same thing. It was like, this is going to be a problem. So that's a great example. Thank you. Do you love suckers? No? Okay. You'll just get my undying gratitude. Would you love a signature guide? Or a letter opener. There we go. Because everybody, even though we don't get mail like we used to, we still get bills. So there you go. Pardon me. I've talked a lot now, so I have to put up my hair because I'm getting hot. I'm sweating now, so hold on. I'm going into sport mode. Or it's like a pre-hot flash, we'll see. Either way. It's happening either way. A lot of this we've talked about. Provide assistance without judgment. I think it's not our role. Obviously, your business is your business. You don't want to share all your information with everybody. People don't have to disclose what their disability is if they don't want to, or they can if they want to. That's fine too. But if someone asks for help, they are entitled to it. And it can be, we all know that when it comes to voting assistance, someone can bring their own assistant, or they can ask one of y'all to help. And so that's an option as well. Obviously, we can't ask oh, you're asking for help, but why? But sometimes I like to say the better way of asking is how can I best help you? Or what's the best way to help you through this? And they'll know. And so that's how we ask. It's our job, y'all's job, the main goal is to help that individual cast their ballot, to vote successfully, and then, move on. And so I think that's the big goal, probably. So heads up about that. Yes, ma'am.
I once had a voter.
Yes.
She brought her brother
Yeah.
to vote. That brother doesn't speak,
Uh-huh.
doesn't write, doesn't do anything. So she just held his hand
Mm-hmm.
so he could do the X.
Yes.
But when she went to the machine,
Yes.
he didn't know anything because,
Yeah.
he's got a disability.
So he couldn't communicate anything.
Nothing.
Okay.
So she was the one that was
Mhm.
grabbed his hand and she was pressing the button.
Yeah. This is a wonderful example. So I don't know if everybody heard that. Someone came in, There was an assistant. She was, the sister to the brother who was voting. Brother was nonverbal, non-communicative. She helped him sign an X on the check-in table, but then when it came to the voting booth, there wasn't a lot of verbal communication, and so she was using his hand to mark the ballot. This is a great example of there's a lot going on that we don't know about. And we've talked about this we call this there could have been ways that they communicated earlier. They could have reviewed the sample ballot and said, what are you wanting to vote on? In whatever way he communicates, because they have some way of doing it. He could have communicated that beforehand, or they could have practiced beforehand. So the fact is, she was helping him. She was doing his job as an assistant. What you told me, there was nothing illegal.
She said she had brought him from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Because the parents only had him in bed.
Okay.
He never went to school. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So she brought him over here to help him.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was nothing.
No, you did good. I mean, that's all you can do. You let her serve as an assistant. She did that. And again, there's a lot that we don't know. And so, and we'll talk, there's a lot of discussion in our world about queuing. And so when laws were passed about the types of assistance that can be offered to people, there were rules laid out that said, this is the type of assistance you can offer, but not this type. In our role at Disability Rights Texas, do you like chocolate? Okay. There you go. Our role at Disability Rights Texas was to remind people, but there's a lot of assistance that goes on that you're not aware of that may not look like assistance, but it is. So if someone has a memory problem or a traumatic brain injury, there's a lot of cueing. We call it cueing, so you could remind a person verbally, do you remember when we talked about this guy who was running for mayor and we talked about this and you said you wanted to vote that way? That is a way of jumping that person's memory or cueing them, so to speak. So there's a lot and everybody is different. They have a different system that works for them. So we don't know everything. And so you did a great job. You let them vote. The ballot was cast. If there are concerns about what that decision process was like, that's for the Secretary of State to figure out. That's beyond your pay realm. So, you did good. Thank you. I'll do you, and somebody else's hand was up first. Okay.
And I think the person was downstairs.
Okay.
And they brought him to vote. And they said, no, he can vote.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's hard and everything, but when he signed, he thought he was done.
Oh, right.
He goes, yeah, I voted.
Yeah.
And then the lady goes, no, you're not done. How do we do that? I mean, how do we do that?
Yeah. So that's so the question was, or the example was, someone came in who appeared to have Down syndrome, and they signed their name on the check-in. Do you like dark chocolate? Okay. Somebody will like you for it regardless. And he signed and he thought he voted, and that was it. So, but that wasn't just it. How do we approach that? Did you have a comment to make about that? Okay.
I have a great example.
Okay.
We're out there waiting to vote.
Okay.
And we, like I said, we don't know what happens at home.
Right.
I told him, he said, I'm going to need your help. I said, David, what do you want to vote? Who do you want to vote for?
Right.
I want to vote how do you do, because I said, how do you believe?
Right.
What are your beliefs? What are your
Right.
values? What do you? So then he said, that's what that I need for you to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to the voting. I would hate for somebody to say, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get our class and sign the paper that I would help.
Right. So yeah,
don't know what happened.
exactly. There's a lot of conversations that can happen beforehand. We don't know what's going on. I actually want to address that. I think in that situation, it would just be a gentle, you could just gently remind her, oh no, there's more to do. How exciting for you. That's not just voting. You also get to go to this machine over here and make some other choices. And if you need help, we're happy to help you. But if you want to bring someone else, you can do that too. It's just kind of prompting them through it. It may be that they know, but they just forgot for whatever. They were swept up in the moment,
The lady was, she wanted to stay with him, she wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Yeah. Well, that's what we assume, That's a lot of assumption. And I got, I have a story of, I won't name the county. It wasn't here. It was that really bad one that y'all hate. Oh! And we're done. It was great being here.
The diabetes community has spoken.
That's right.
We just upgraded the snowing tossed candy salad.
That's right.
You woke us up.
That was our stunt work for the day. No. The magic's gone. No. Yes, sir.
On assistance, I'm sure everyone here hopefully does it. There is an oath of assistance.
Yes.
And I have had people that, that will say, well, no, I don't want to do it. Then we offer our assistance. But we had one case because on that, he was going through it and then he got to the last question. He says, have you received any remuneration payment or break? And he said, what do you think?
Yeah.
It's done. And we finally had to assist the person
Yeah.
because this person was offended.
Yeah.
They should have,
Mhm.
it's my mother, that
Right.
sort of-
We can, and I know I'm sure you're aware of the history behind that. And I can explain that. I'll tell my quick story of the county we all hate, but will remain unnamed. I didn't say it. I don't know what you're talking about. But I got a call. We have a voter hotline. Got a call from an individual. He was the brother of the voter, and the voter came. The voter has Down syndrome, and the voter's registered to vote. All good. Came in to check in, and the person checking him in was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you can vote? Are you sure about that?" And asked him a couple times. And they're like, "Yeah, I can vote." And the brother stepped in. He's like, "Well, I'm going to assist him. So back off." And then the election worker was like, "Oh, a twofer. So your brother's just going to vote for however you vote." And so, yeah. And so that's when we got they left. They were pissed off. That's when we got the phone call. And so that story is to show, obviously, we don't make assumptions based on one's appearance, because I'm sure there's a lot of assumptions that are going to be made about me that probably aren't true. I'm sure there's a lot of people would be like, "Are you sure you can vote, Molly? Are you sure?" But what happened was they called us, we ended up calling the county and saying, "Look, this is the polling site it's happening at, there's this and that, you got to let them vote." And I said, "Don't leave the parking lot, we're getting somebody out there." And they were able to cast their ballot. But I think they may not have been completely malicious. The election worker probably wasn't malicious in their intention, but they were just wrapped up in everything that was going on for the day, and this is how it came out. But it could backfire really badly, because then the voters were really pissed off, and they're like, "I want to file a complaint. I want to do this, I want to do that." And I was like, "Well, that's your right. You can do that." So, there you go. About the assistant oath, that's our fail-safe, I think, as election workers. They sign that. People who sign that assistant oath, that is what they're signing. It is a legal affidavit at that point, and so that's on them. There is that part that says you have not received any compensation. That exists if you are not aware, which I'm sure you already know. But there, back when you could, kind of like politiqueras almost, go in there and help people cast their ballot, but you're getting money for how many people you register to vote or how many people you're helping vote and making sure they're voting a certain way. So that exists for that purpose. Fun Disability Rights Texas fact, we argued that point when they were talking about the new affidavit, creating it, and we said, how does this apply to companions or health workers or aides that come in and assistants that help our voters? Is that going to apply to them? And so we argued that it doesn't. So if that ever comes up, it's not applicable for people who are nurses, caregivers, things like that, and they're receiving money for it, because that's their day-to-day interaction, and that's their job. So it doesn't apply to that. So, yes, ma'am.
Question for you concerning that. I had a Down syndrome too.
Okay.
Mother came and registered him and everything. He let him. He gave him his ballot. But then, he started yelling and crying. We have this constantly happening every year.
Mhm.
It's the same thing, the same.
Just
thing.
yelling and crying.
And then the mother tells me, I don't know, what I want to know is, can the mother go ahead and just vote for him, or does his hand to be able to touch it?
She is allowed to mark the ballot. So assistants are allowed to mark the ballot for the individual as long as it is reflecting what the individual wants marked.
But he was crying and yelling, he put us
Oh.
in, and I didn't know what to do, and all I did was
Just
cover
let
his
them cry and let them yell.
And we told the mother, just come down, don't
Yeah.
yell at him. If he's ready to vote, we'll go ahead, and if not, we'll cancel, just, call it in.
And I think that's perfect, because I have a kid that's on the spectrum, and so many times on the autism spectrum, so many times I have a meltdown in public. And if you didn't know what was going on, because I've had to potato sack that kid and carry him out to the car screaming and crying, and it looks horrible. I was like, someone's gonna think I'm kidnapping you, but I'm not. But all that being said, that's just how he expresses whatever's going on. So I don't know, the crying and the screaming, that could just be them communicating. It could be the lights. It's an overstimulating environment. There's a lot going on. How many times do we really want to scream and cry in public, but then we kind of catch ourselves? I want to do it right now, but I'm stopping myself. But I think it's perfect. You created an environment of not being rushed, an environment of safety for that individual. It's you know what, take your time. When he's ready, he can vote. If we need to cancel it, we will. If he wants to sit to the side and kind of get his whole whatever, center himself. If y'all need to go do a thing and come back, let us know. I think that's a great way of handling it. Because I'll tell you, and some of y'all have probably been in situations like this as well. I'm with my kid who's having a meltdown, and I can feel everybody's eyes watching me and judging me, and I'm just back off. You don't know what's going on. So then I get the pressure. As the caregiver, I get the pressure of everybody's watching us, and they're wondering why I'm just not going to spank you and get it over with, or And so you get that as the caregiver too. So the fact that you created a welcoming and safe environment, I think, is very important for everybody who was involved. Yes, ma'am. Oh, hello. You got a, yeah, yeah, you got a seed. You planted a seed. Okay. Hello. Yes. Right.
So, honest to God,
Yeah.
this is the first time I knew that I would be able to assist him in the voting process.
Okay.
So, one, that was eye-opening, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
And two, so, and it's wonderful that individuals who are assisting voters with disabilities have the perspective not to identify them as like my son,
Right.
in particular, I would really be offended if somebody would say, the IDD individual.
Yeah. Or the retarded kid or whatever. Yeah.
So,
Let's just say it. It's not PC, but yeah.
It's eye-opening from a point of view.
Yeah.
From a parent and caregiver, and and a city employee.
Yes.
Who, wow, and I just want to thank everybody that takes their time.
Yeah.
To help them with the process.
Yes.
He's never voted, so this year it will be his, first time voting
Yay.
because of this new
Yeah.
knowledge that I just received. But it's refreshing when that you are training individuals to not see the disability,
Right.
to see the individual.
Well, thanks goes to them. I'm just talking. So good job, everybody. Yeah, the election department is the one that does all the hard work. I'm just the preacher. This is the choir. You talk to them.
I just want to share something really quick. I've had the opportunity to attend events where we have a large number of young adults with disabilities learn how to use the voting machines. It's been my observation that they get extremely overwhelmed. Even for me, it's overwhelming to go, is it a new machine? Did they change it? What do I do now? There's people waiting. They're, expecting me to do stuff. So thank you. It's very overwhelming for them, and they get nervous and they don't know what to do. One thing that I noticed is when we told them you don't have to vote for every single person on the ballot. If you have a particular interest, you can skip some of those, and you don't have to go through every single one. There's like a sense of relief for some of them. Oh, okay, and then I'm done. Yeah, and then you're done. Oh, okay, and they were able to approach the machines more easily. So just keep that in mind. People manifest their anxiety and their feeling of overwhelm in different ways. So
I like to throw buckets of candy everywhere.
that works too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think y'all probably see that a lot too. Is like, not everybody's aware that you can skip around on the ballot. So like, oh, I don't. Oh, good, great. I don't have to do all this stuff I wasn't prepared for. Yes, ma'am.
I've gotten into a habit and I'm trying to get my clerks
Uh huh.
to do it. When you're taking them up, you tell them, pick and choose who you want, how you want your ballot to go. If you have any questions, please ask.
Yeah.
And then you have them put the card in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. We're here to answer your questions, here to serve, because that's what it is. It's a service position at the end of the day. There's transactions, but you're here to provide a service. And yeah, so good job. My favorite topic, preparing the polling place. We did that for the past 2 days earlier. Part of what we also do is inspect polling sites to make sure they're compliant with ADA guidelines. So we'll talk about that too. Posting signs. You'll probably have to post some signs. We're focused on, I know that there are rules about like the Secretary of State signs, how they have to have a particular language, you know, whatever. So do that. But any signs that you're, do what they want you to do. Follow the law. Love you, Secretary of State. But any signs that you create on your own, so like directional signs to like, you know, if the accessible entrance is not the main entrance, making sure that language is clear and definable. So just simple, plain language, as we'll say it, which is like non-jargon related language. Easy to understand, instructing voters on what to do, stuff like that. And making sure that they're visible. Travis County is always really good about being nice to me when they're at our polling site, but I'm like, you need to make that bigger. That font needs to be bigger. I will do it for you. Print it out. Creating clear paths, that's a big one. Some of you may be in really cozy spaces in your voting areas. So making sure that you have enough space to provide a clear path for someone who is using a walker or a wheelchair or just maybe needs a little more space. Making sure there's enough space. And that's usually, like, sidewalks are 36 inches, or supposed to be 36 inches wide. That's the bare minimum. But there's the election department, the office knows about all of that. So if you have questions, if you think something is looking a little narrow or whatever, ask them, and they'll be happy to oblige and maybe make changes in the way that it's laid out. Or if you're working at a polling site and you've noticed, oh, this current layout isn't working the best way, there may be something more efficient. If you can change it, change it. If you need to talk to somebody about it before you do that too. Putting yourselves, like we said, in the voter's place. We talked also about like people with who are blind, have some level of a visual impairment. We do a lot of looking at things that are overhead or on walls, so making sure you don't run into them is a big thing. Making sure pathways are clear, things like that. Keeping cords and none of y'all have to deal with cords or wires at your polling sites, but making sure that those are covered up or not a tripping hazard, so to speak. That's a thing as well. Man, the clearance thing is big. Making sure you have adequate clearance, like even at the sign-in tables, so there's enough space underneath the table so someone, if they're in a wheelchair, they can come and like just sit comfortably. They don't have to, do that long stretch number to try to sign in. You have the voting booths that are a little bit higher, or a little bit lower to accommodate people's needs as well. Setting up your equipment, being familiar with it. This is, I've never gotten a call regarding El Paso County, but it never fails. Every election, we get a call from somewhere in the state saying a voter went to vote and they wanted to use the accessible voting machine and it wasn't turned on. And they're like, it wasn't turned on. I had to wait for it to be turned on. And then I had to help the election worker figure out all the accessible devices, because you'll have the HART machines or the ES&S. So the ES&S ones are kind of nice because you have the remote that's kind of, I call it like a remote that's attached in it. You have the buttons on it and the earphones you can plug in. It's kind of one-stop shopping. But like they would have to help people like go through the process, like the election workers. So I always encourage, no matter where I am, make sure your accessible voting machine, since it's the ES&S, I'm sure they're all the same, make sure they're turned on. First, rule number one of voting, make sure your voting machines are turned on when it's time to vote. Making sure that all your staff are comfortable and have a knowledge of how to use all the equipment on the voting machines are important, because there are a lot of, there's, aside from the exterior tools, you can even increase the font or change the screen contrast on there, so the language, so a lot of great options. That's my soap stand for the day. Turn on your voting machines. Yes, sir.
Don't we have, with our machines, a person who has a disability can still choose whichever machine, and we can make it adaptable to?
Right. That's the beauty of the ES&S machines, is they're all accessible.
We don't have to have a designation.
Right.
We should ask. We should tell them to have the vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and I think it just goes back to that, seeing what they need to best serve themselves. How can I best help you? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing too, like ask about, we should have one machine permanently, like in place, because typically we don't, we have them all by default, and then it's up to the voter to request for each voter. But what I've seen, any voter that comes in on a scooter, on a wheelchair, we kindly ask, like, if there's any way that we can assist you, it's
Right.
kind of like prompting them to like ask us
Yeah,
for it,
and that's great.
No one really ever does.
Most people are just like, we'll figure it out, and if they don't ask for it, they don't ask for it. That's cool. And some people also just don't want to make a big fuss.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about, is like, it feels like a, well, it kind of feels like a bit the burden on the voter, but I also know that it's.
Yeah, you're going to be in charge of that from now on. I've lost that privilege. Yeah, I think that's great, because even my story for that is like, at my office, there was someone in line to vote, and I knew about like their medical needs and stuff, and they were outside, and with all the things physically they had going on, I know standing and waiting outside was not conducive for them. And so I asked them, because they have the right, to sit to the side. I was like, would it be better for you? I was like, do you want to come just sit in the lobby where it's air conditioned? And he was like, nah, I don't want to make a thing about it. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I don't want. I was like, okay, well, if you need something, let me know. But I mean, I always use my poor mother as an example of like, my mother had like scoliosis and all this, and so to look at her, you're like, woman, you need some help. Yeah, but you couldn't give it to her if you tried. If you paid her, you couldn't give it to her. So there'd be all the times where she would be standing in line, I'm like, Mom, do you want to like sit down and I'll like save your spot, or we'll do this? She's like, no, I'm fine. I was like, okay, it's up to you, your call. I also tried to use her as a mole for curbside voting at the town I live in, but that didn't work out, so. Oh, yeah. Is there a way to increase the volume for me? You need me to be louder? Oh, y'all should have said something. I'll just be louder. Oh, on the camera. Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all should have said something. Yes. Feel free to throw something at me.
I was just going to say that when we had that last election, which was the big election, I had over 800 people that moved to my
Yeah.
elementary school at Joseph Torres.
Yes.
And I was that some of the elderly people were getting really tired because the lines were really long. We had to make like a big snake
Yeah.
inside there, and it went outside too.
Mhm.
And she's my assistant, she's a good assistant. But yeah, she was helping me with that. And then I noticed that, you know, this one lady, she just was so, I said, oh, you need a chair, because I noticed up there, just be prepared to miscellaneous.
Extra
materials
chairs.
To accommodate a voter with limited mobility.
Mhm.
And so I went and got a chair, and so did my assistant.
Perfect. Yeah. So her example, I'll try to project more. Her example was, you know, they had a lot, like 800 voters come through their place, and the line went around the building, and you can, you know, see like maybe there was some people who were having a hard time standing up, and that was kind of the thing, like have some extra chairs to accommodate, because as the law says, someone can sit down to the side and have their space saved, or they can move to the front if they need to. And sometimes I will get questions about, well, is it okay for me to ask if someone's standing in line if they want to sit? And generally, I don't think too many people will be offended by that. But also what we like to do is I would do a cattle. I've seen people just kind of do cattle calls, like they'll stand outside where the line is and say, look, if you need to take a break, if standing up is hard or it's getting too hot and it's not healthy for you, you can take a seat inside. That way it's not, if someone can maybe avoid being felt like they're being singled out. And most folks, they'll raise their hand, or like the person in line will be like, you may want to check in on with this person. Because there is a camaraderie that happens when you stand in line for hours with people. So yeah, I think that that's a good point. Like having extra chairs, knowing that, and also you can move them to the front of the line if they need to now. So there's that. Paper and pen, having extra chairs, have a paper and pen if someone, like we said, wants to write it out. That's good. Making sure you got all the forms and all the paperwork and all the doodads and whistles, making sure you have that. Earphones that are working so you can plug them into the machines. Also, you know, anything else. And sometimes, so the accessible machines have different tools. We were talking about this yesterday. So the parts that you would plug in are the earphones, there's the remote switch that comes out, and then there's the touch screen. But also some people use sip and puff devices. So when I say sip and puff devices, do y'all know what that is? Yeah. Okay. I like to tell people, think about Christopher Reeve, or Superman, after he had that accident and he had the thing that he blew into to help him do stuff, move around. That's the sip and puff device. Sometimes people need to use that. There is a plug to plug your sip and puff device into. That is a very expensive piece of medical equipment. If you haven't had to price them, they're not cheap. So most folks, if they're using one, will have one that they use. And so they can just plug that right in if it's a question. And it goes, there's like a headphone symbol on the voting machine, and then there's, I think it's just like the person in the wheelchair symbol, and that's where you would plug in the sip and puff device. So if they're using that, chances are they're going to use it, see if they can use it. And the machine has it all set up. So it's equipped for that, so they should know what to do. But in case someone comes across that. Hidden disabilities, we talk about that and we use the words like IDD, and I wrote it down because I never remember everything. Developmental disabilities, and people will ask me, what's the difference between the two? Basically, intellectual disabilities are kind of cognitive disabilities. So if you have issues with like problem solving or memory, developmental disabilities, I would think like, if you even, you know, we could get really into like the muck of using the words and the titles, but generally speaking, think about like physical, neurological challenges, sensory defects. So I'm thinking like autism spectrum or ADHD. If someone like, these lights are not fantastic for everybody, or if someone's in the middle of like stimming in the middle of the thing, just let them do their thing. And when I say stimming, do y'all know what I mean when I say that? Okay. Stimming is like, it can be a lot of different things for a lot of people. It could be like if you see people like shaking their hand, like that. It's just to like release some energy perhaps. Some people twirl, some people may have a fidget that they use. It's just to kind of like release some energy basically. And it helps center the individual as well. It happens a lot. And so if you know what it is, you see it and you're like, okay, cool, whatever. If you don't know what it is and you're like, why is that person acting that way? They may be stimming, and it's just a form of calming themselves down and stimulation at the same time. So, like for me, you could almost say when I get nervous, I'll stim because I tap a lot on my leg when I get nervous, and so that's just a way of calming myself down. So everybody does it probably in one way or the other. It's just that some people have official ways of doing it. Yes, sir?
Hear the word stemming?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I don't think it is an acronym. It's just, I'm not sure where the word came from, but that's the common word that is used to describe that.
Doesn't it come from like stimulating?
There it is. Get that girl a sucker. She got the golden ticket for the day. Do you want to come up here and do this?
What did she say?
She said, I said, I don't know where the word stimming comes from. And she's like, doesn't it come from the word stimulating? And I said, there it is. You got the golden goose today. So many acronyms, such little time. Yeah. Oh, well, no. Can we do a break? Okay, you want just, okay. All right, I think, yes, sir.
The election the judge was talking about here?
Yes.
Okay, you know, the long snake, I mean,
Yes.
7 o'clock, there's 150 people in line, happens all the time.
Yeah.
For big elections. And we're talking about hidden disabilities.
Yes.
There was a lady, I mean, she was in her 30s, she looked perfect.
Right.
There was, I mean, she looked fine. She came up to me and she said, I need to go to the front of the line.
Okay.
And I'm saying, well, you know, and she kept looking at her watch and all this, and I said, well, maybe she's just trying to jump the line.
Right.
That was my initial
Right.
reaction. So, and I said, yeah, I said, sure. If I said for the right reason, yeah, we can. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she had a hidden device on her, okay, that with her watch
Mm-hmm.
and her phone, she tapped it,
Okay.
and it showed her blood sugar. Her blood sugar was very, very, very low. Now, I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I don't have medical training. I took her at her word.
Yeah.
I don't know what a 98 means, but she said
She knew.
She said she was in distress and she needed to get something in her body quickly.
Yeah.
Could I? So yes. So I took her
Yeah.
to the front of the line.
Yeah, there you go.
Got her voted. And then I had several voters come up to me wanting to know why she was
Right.
taken to the front of the line.
Yeah.
And I said, ma'am, it's none of your business. There was a reasonable reason for me to do that.
Yep.
And I'm not going to explain to you the reasons why, but you should have seen the daggers and the
Oh,
looks
yeah.
that I got
Yeah.
for doing that for this lady.
I've gotten those daggers, yeah.
But there are these devices. that
Absolutely.
they
And that's
have
a
things that are
perfect situation. For those that didn't hear, he said he was standing, oh, yeah, there you go. He was standing in line, or a person was standing in line. It was, like 0 hour. Woman was looking at her watch, and if she appeared to be physically able and all this, but, you would think, oh, maybe she's just got somewhere to be, and she wants to rush the line. She asked to move to the front of the line, and he's like, sure, we can do that with, what's up? And she explained she had a diabetic, her blood counter or sugar counter, and you couldn't see it, and so it was like she had to get there, so she had to vote so she could go get her blood sugar up or low. So that was that, and that's a perfect example. And then afterwards, people saw that she moved to the front of the line. It was like, well, why can't I move to the front of the line? And you handled it great, because they were asking, well, why did they move to the front? And I heard someone else say it. It's like, it's none of your business. It's taken care of. That was a discussion, and you say, like, that's a private discussion. I'm not going to share it. But everything was handled correctly. So, sorry. Yes, sir.
I think in answer to that, why can't she? Okay, it's HIPAA prohibits me from giving you any
There you go.
disclosing any information.
Yeah, so HIPAA prohibits me from talking to you about why that individual needed to move up front. Yeah, you know, and it could always, if you forget that, you could always just say earlier, like, I gotta tie my shoe so I don't trip. You can say, look, that was a private conversation. I'm sure you don't want me sharing our conversations with everybody else in the line, so just please be respectful and, you know that you gotta stay in line. You can't move to the front. Yes, sir. Yes, hi.
I had an aunt who had this situation happen when she was driving when I was like 12.
Okay.
And we had to stop in order for her to get like an orange juice or something
Right.
like that. So, when we are working at these places, should we also have someone maybe who knows a little bit more about diabetes or who are diabetic? Should we have some things set aside?
Right. So the question was if that, that happens a lot where people with diabetes will need, to increase their blood sugar or whatever. The question was, do we need to maybe have like a tub of like orange juice or whatever? And I'll say it is, as the county, as an election worker, it is not your responsibility to do that. If that happens, like let's say someone goes into diabetic shock or they go into a seizure or whatever happens for them, you can call 911. But it is not our job. It's not your job to accommodate. I think if that's something you want to do on the side, have a conversation with the county about it. But yeah, I get it.
Because sometimes they may need ADHD.
Right. Yeah.
As well as diabetic.
Yeah.
And they may have, I forgot to bring my suitcase.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I try hard.
Yeah.
But, that may have been a busy morning and they forgot to put something in
Absolutely.
their purse.
When I think it's like how the gentleman handled it, if you have a conversation with them and you're finding out they're having medical needs, saying if you need to move to the front of the line, so you want to vote, we can get that knocked out and then you can go take care of what you need to do, that's fine. Because that is a reasonable accommodation. Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to be careful in our concern for that person who seems to be having a medical issue. If we offer something that they're allergic to or shouldn't have, and they're not medically able to say, no, I can't.
Right.
Then we are responsible.
Right.
But if they ask us, do you have an orange or something?
Right. That's if they ask for something specific and you feel comfortable offering that, unless y'all feel otherwise, you may have concerns or thoughts on it. But if you want to give them, if you have an orange and you're like, yeah, knock yourself out, that's on you. But otherwise, there's professionals and, call the paramedics. They'll know it. They got it all there anyway. If it's something that is unavoidable, just call them and it'll be good.
Our job, remember, is to manage the polls. But every time that we call from Secretary of State and ask them, and like Holly said, it's really important not to, especially because if you give them like a snack that has some nuts and they're allergic to nuts, and that's gonna be also a law. So we prefer for you all just to man the polls, that's your job, and, we'll give it to the medical professionals if there's a scenario on that.
Her answer was Melissa's answer. If you didn't hear it, she said, or your primary objective, the reason you're getting, she didn't say the reason you're getting paid, but your primary goal is you're there to do the election, to man the polls, to person up the polls. If you want to offer somebody something, it's really boils down to, I think, a liability at that point. So they would prefer that you just do that. But there you go. So it's hard, but it's hard. Yes, ma'am.
Simple way, especially for diabetic, you don't have to offer them just a drink, a drink that will raise the blood right away, okay? Orange juice is one of those. My sister's a nurse and my brother's a doctor. And one of the things you do is the first thing they always, because I've had those issues happen in election when my sugar has gone up to 50.
Oh, wow.
And without knowing, I'm so busy doing this.
Yeah.
And you know what? I start realizing, and I said, oh my God, and they know, the girls already know.
That's good.
You know what? You see me like run and get it because we always have.
You're always slammed.
Snacks
Yeah,
around us.
yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
always.
my people, they always got snacks. All right. I saw another hand. Are we good? Okay. Yeah, just ask. Rights to accessibility. We love, at Disability Rights Texas, we love Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. What that is basically that is talking about physical accessibility of buildings, of public buildings, or like county or city buildings. And so we love that. Those are the laws that enforce physical accessibility of polling sites. What is accessibility in general? I like to say is the opposite of segregation. So, accessibility just means that it is inclusion, it is allowing everybody to have, access to what they need. Segregation is separating the two. And I don't think anybody's really into that. We get a lot of questions about churches. So, churches are separate from state and federal laws in themselves, unless they are involving themselves in an election. Then they have to adhere to the state and federal laws. If they're going to participate in an election, they have to adhere to ADA guidelines of accessibility and everything else. So we get a lot of questions about that. And so usually when we go to churches to inspect them, it's a little more work, where there's a lot more temporary measures that have to be taken while the election is occurring at that spot. So heads up. And if church, and we do it all the time of like, we'll make suggestions on how to make something accessible at a church. The church says that's going to cost too much money. And I was like, well, then we don't have to have you as a polling site. So easy peasy. We'll move on. Every polling site, as you know, must be physically accessible. If it is not, El Paso will call me. We'll come up here again. But we have to create, every polling site must be accessible. If it's not, for whatever reason, there are ways to make it temporarily, accommodating. And then the goal will be to find a more permanent accessible location. Yeah. Voter rights and accommodations. Every voter has the right to a physically accessible polling site, the right to use the accessible voting machine, or in this case, every voting machine. The right to receive assistance, whether it is from a person of their choosing or one of y'all, the right to a reasonable accommodation, and then curbside voting as well. I'm deciding whether or not I want to explain reasonable accommodation. Do y'all have questions about that? Yes, sir.
That's what my hand is. This
Okay.
is the third slide where you've got reasonable accommodation.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
What would be an unreasonable?
Okay. Well, I'll say we use that word a lot because that's in all the laws and everything. Can I tell a story? Can I tell the story that we talked about yesterday? Okay. I'll change it up a little. Yay! Gather around, everybody. I will say a reasonable accommodation. So, let's say someone needs an interpreter, but it's a very niche sort of thing. So you may have somebody, I'm actually not going to tell that story. I'm changing the names and dates to protect the innocent. But let's say there are people who are deaf and blind, right, at the same time. They have a very niche way of communicating with individuals. That can be called, one of the ways is tactile communication. And they may have interpreters, and it's tactile interpretation. So if you're thinking, what is that? I would think Helen Keller, if that makes so, when they would do the signs in the hands, and there's various ways of doing it. That is a very select form of interpretation. So, let's say somebody needs that. There happens to be one in the county. County has to provide that interpreter if it's requested. Okay, cool, we have one in the county, great. That is reasonable. What would maybe unreasonable is if you search high and low for that kind of interpreter, but the only one available lives in Montana. You can't, it's unreasonable, and it's outside the purview of cost to fly somebody in from out of state and have that interpretation service available. That's kind of extreme. So you could say you tried to reasonably provide that accommodation because you looked in the county, you looked in a close radius, but it wasn't available. And if you try to problem solve with that person about finding other ways of communication or interpretation services, that's it. Reasonable accommodation just basically means it's not going to be an unnecessary undue burden on the person providing the accommodation. So in businesses, they use it a lot of a reasonable accommodation. So if I can't stand for long periods of time, having a stool to sit on, or knowing that maybe me taking this job of where I have to stand versus a job where I can sit down, that's going to be more of a reasonable accommodation for me to take the job that's sitting down. So it's little things like that. Nothing. So I would say nothing that's extreme in its going out of its way to provide assistance to you. Does that help? Okay. An unreasonable accommodation was a gentleman or somebody, a voter wanted everybody to leave the polling site so they could vote because they felt everybody was looking at them. Well, that's not extremely reasonable. Maybe what we could do, maybe you can come when it's slower hours, or if we want to look at curbside voting and you can do it in your car, that's an option. That would be more reasonable. Asking everybody to leave, not so much. That's a great example. Supporting a voter can look like, somebody else had a hand up. Are you good? Yes, sir.
Would distance be considered unreasonable? Because we're not there yet now, but we
Right.
were at a place where they moved us where it was easy to get in and out, but they were beginning construction of a new building, so they moved us from where we were to another one, but the entrance still was where the old place was, the ramp.
Yeah, oh, the ramp.
So if they were in a wheelchair, they really had to do all of this going about and so forth.
Yes. So the question was, is distance an accommodation? And it's a fun fact, yes. And also, the law states that voter entrance must be, or where someone parks, the voter entrance has to be closely related. They have to be close. So like if you park, accessible parking has to be the closest to the voter entrance. Now that's not always how real life works, but that's when you try to find, like if there's a building under construction, you try to find accommodating ways to counteract that. So like if a voter, the accessible parking spot is over here, the voter entrance is way over there because of construction, it used to be over here. A reasonable accommodation could be, we can bring the ballot out to you even. So if you can't walk all that way, or it's, for various reasons, we'll bring it out to you, and that's a fine accommodation. Because that's the whole purpose of curbside voting as well. One of the purposes is if you cannot safely access the polling place without causing yourself injury or sickness, then you can access curbside voting. That's the whole purpose of it. So great question. I thought.
One of the good things is that our election has given us those big signs, giving us a phone number that they can call.
Yes.
Let us know that they need, that.
Yeah. That's the great thing about those big signs of curbside voting. Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm not understanding to what extent did we mark the voters' ballot?
So there was also, I made this slide when the infamous Senate Bill 1 came through, and there was a lot of debate about what kind of assistance could and could not be offered. And I get a lot of questions about what kind of assistance can be offered. Because there was a rule at one point in time saying you can help somebody all night and day, but they got to be the ones to mark the ballot. That's not the case anymore. The assistant can mark the ballot for the voter. Because I think there was a lot of previous concerns like, well, I can't. The assistant, that's their ballot. They can't mark it. The voter has to mark it. But now the rules have changed, the laws have changed, and it says the assistant can mark the ballot for the individual. They can do it on their own as long as it reflects what the voter wants. So I think that's why that is on there. Does that help answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
I can't help but notice under the items there, unlawful assistance includes providing assistance to a voter that is not eligible, which is completely contradictory.
Right. I know.
Everything that we have just been discussing.
I know. I know. So that is the beauty of our esteemed Texas legislature. We got to put that in there. It's not our call. It's not your call to say who and who does not get assistance. It may also just be for as a warning to people who are trying to provide assistance. Like if you know that person doesn't need it, don't give it to them because there are other people who are, but it's there. We said it. Just let them provide assistance, and that's why they have that oath. That's the Secretary of State's job. Let them figure that out. Yes.
I was going to say that this they're not necessarily disabled, but some of our senior citizens and some people who are vision impaired
Right.
as well, they forgot their glasses or I don't have my Bible.
Right.
So we go.
I had to let somebody borrow my glasses one time.
And then what I'll do is I'll mark it for them, and I say, "This is how you mark. That's not who I voted for." And then this is how you unmark.
There you go.
So you just showed them, but you didn't alter the ballot.
Right. Even just showing an example of how to mark it, because yeah, the machines change. People may forget, or maybe they didn't bring their readers with them. All sorts of stuff. That is kind of counterproductive to every. You're right. It is. It's counterproductive to everything that we say, but it's there. We have to say it. But the big one also to take away from that is marking the ballot in a way that the voter doesn't want it. That is not allowed. Yes, sir.
Can you explain asking questions for queuing?
Yes. So let me see where it says that. Oh, asking questions or queuing. So earlier when I spoke about maybe providing assistance to a voter that we're not aware of that may work really well for them. So sometimes if you ask questions, the idea is you prompt somebody's memory. It's like, do you remember when we talked about electing Molly to the city council position and you said you wanted to do that or you liked that idea or you said that was the worst idea to ever happen? That could be a form of asking questions or queuing. So it's like prompting them to remember. It's just another form of assistance. But it may look like, to someone who's not aware, it may look like someone is trying to groom them into an answer or lead them into an answer that the assistant wants. But that may not be the case. And so all that to be said, everybody has a different way of receiving assistance. And it may not, and in our world, we call that queuing. Like, I'm going to queue you up so you remember what we talked about or the decision you wanted to make. These questions are going to queue that up in your memory. So that's why, that's pretty jargon heavy, but that's what it means. Does that help answer your question at all? No. I would say, no, it's good. I want them to leave well informed. I appreciate your honesty. So I'm trying to think like, what's that?
Is he the handsome one or is he the old one? And that helped her to identify who she
What if they're both? Yeah.
That seemed like an odd question.
That could be.
It wasn't. She wasn't voting for the handsome one. She was. That was her way.
That was her way of remembering which one to vote for. Yeah. Did y'all hear that? Yeah. Okay. And so that could be a way of doing it. I'm trying to think of like a real world example.
I'm trying to think what race.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me it's like that would be a conversation
Like leading someone?
between the voter and their personal assistant.
Right. Yes, it is.
Okay, because otherwise, we get all these people come to the polls. Who should I vote for? I don't know anybody. Or can you explain this proposition kind of thing?
Well, and you can do that. Well, except, let me scratch that. If you are helping the voter and they say, can you explain it? You can, especially like on propositions, because the language is all funky. What does that mean? Can you explain what that means? You can try to like relay that in like plain language, what it would mean, but you can't say, well, this is what would happen if you voted for this, and these are the results if you voted yes or no. So you can't say that, but it's providing. Do you have any examples?
I have an example.
Okay, good.
So we'll get to your question.
I cued her just there.
We work closely, almost all of the cities in Texas have, or the counties in Texas have, a Center for Independent Living. And these organizations focus on giving people with disabilities independence and trying to avoid having them be institutionalized, being able to live on their own and have a fulfilling life the best they can. A lot of times, these CILs, Centers for Independent Living, will have sessions where they will talk about the propositions that are coming up and how they may impact people with disabilities, and they'll put it in plain language, and they'll have their parents Proposition 10.1B, blah, blah, blah. They'll be like, remember that one that talks about X, Y, and Z? And remember how they talked to us about how it might impact you? Oh, yeah, I remember now. And that's really sometimes all it takes. It's not, oh, it's this politician that, remember you said that you wanted to vote for him? Not necessarily that. It's more like, remember we talked about this, or they told us about this, and they told us about such and such, and this is what this particular person is going to support. And the person will be like, oh yes, I remember, I want to support them, I want to vote for them. And that's, sometimes it's as basic as that.
Yeah. What, you had your hand up. And we'll get to you.
And if the parties would do that here, if they do, I don't know, it would be great.
Right.
Because when they come to me, all I can do is, I can't say, I
Yeah.
can't make it a thing.
Right.
All I can do is.
What if you understood it different? What if we were wrong?
Right, yeah, and so he was saying it'd be great if the candidates and the parties would do that. And I will actually say, if you're not familiar with it, the League of Women Voters, their voter guides are amazing for that purpose. I love them because I can't understand all the proposition language, and they put it in more understandable language. And it's easier, I'm like, oh, that's what that is. And they provide nonpartisan information. So even using that as a resource may be a great thing as well.
Yeah, because sometimes the language says something, and if you vote for
Oh, I know.
you're actually voting against it.
And that, yeah, I got to write my notes on those proposition elections. I write my notes so I remember how exactly to vote. Yes, sir.
Well, that's good and fine. Okay, however, probably 90% of the people that go to vote have no idea about, doing their homework.
Well,
Times does
it's an assumption, though.
great spread, okay, for the election. The proposition that we had for income tax in Texas, the way it was written, if it had been for social media and, word of mouth, we'd have an income tax in Texas. Excuse me.
Well, I think there's a couple things. That's an assumption that not everybody does their homework or does the homework to what we would expect to be appropriate. And also, that is the nature of our democratic system. And so it is up to that individual. It is their right to choose whether or not they want to register. It is their right to choose how prepared or not prepared they want to be. Again, it is the role to just help them cast that ballot, not anything else. And so you've done your job. If they're able to cast their ballot, mission accomplished. We've talked about this a little bit. Right to assistance, because if a person can't cast their ballot independently because of a disability, they have the right to seek assistance. It can be someone of their choosing, as long as it's not your union representative or your employer. I cannot be Belinda's assistant because I am her union representative, so sorry. I tried to get her to pay me to do it. She said no. And then that assistant must take the oath. And that is the fail-safe, I think, of anything. Is like, if you don't know, that person signed that oath, that's on them. That's for the Secretary of State to figure out. Yeah. So these are the different types of assistants, interpreters. That can be, a verbal language, sign language, whatever. We talked about the accessibility tools of the voting machines, headphones, font size, screen contrast, sip and puff, the curbside voting, the portable machines, and then curbside voting, I do want to, and then the spot in line. That changed this past election, I guess, where now, voters had to seek approval from the election judge to move to the front of the line. Now, if they request it, they have to go without approval from the election judge. Curbside voting, I do want to get to that because that's changed. A law has changed about that recently. Yes, ma'am.
Backing up just a hair.
Yes.
DRE, that acronym, what does it mean?
That means direct recording equipment. So that's voting jargon. That's basically the voting machine.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes. Not Dr. Dre. No. That's a whole other state. In-person voting, we've talked about that. Curbside voting, a law went through the Texas legislature this year. They've tweaked it a little bit. Let's see if I read this correctly. I know what it is in my head. Let me see if that matches up. So the law used to be if you were driving curbside, if you were going to drive a bunch of curbside voters to vote, you could not do it for like 7 or more people that you were not related to. And that was it. Or if you did, you had to sign a thing. Now, the law says, if you transport a total of 7 people that you're not related to during both early vote, so a cumulative total of 7 people during early voting and election day, if you transport more than that, you have to sign the assistant oath. If you don't, you're in the clear. Or you can drive like 14 of your aunts and uncles and cousins and you're fine, I guess. But that's basically the new law. And so that will probably I think they're going to wait for the Secretary of State to come out with more details on that. But that's going to be a new law coming down the road. So just heads up about that. That'll mean probably a little more assistant or some more forms that need to be signed probably for curbside. So that really is going to relate to like if you have nursing homes, large like groups of people, and the fact that you're going to probably have all 7 people vote in during curbside is not very likely. But in case it is, that's probably what we're dealing with. Yes.
Find out if you have a curbside voting, and sometimes people will bring their disabled member of their family or neighbor, but there's 3 or 4 other people in the car that are not disabled.
Right.
And they want to vote.
Right.
Curbside.
Right.
What do you do in that circumstance?
So the law says that if you are, let's say, like I'm driving my dad to go vote, and he can vote curbside. I have, if I need to be his assistant, I also have the right to vote curbside. Or if we're standing in line together, I can also move to the front of the line with him. If you're like carpooling, and you have one person who's there who needs curbside, maybe the others don't, those individuals have to go vote in line. They have to go vote in person. Is it our call to say, are you sure you qualify for curbside? Because I think they'll also, I don't remember the new language, but there may be something stating that individual qualifies for curbside voting. There may be something on the new form that's coming out that says you, as the voter, qualify for curbside voting. So, if they just wanted because they'll still have to wait in line, they're still going to be in line. It's not like they're going to get to jump ahead if they're doing curbside. So they can go vote in person, get in line, vote in person. If they request curbside, we can't interrogate them. They'll just do what they need to do. They'll sign what they need to sign. And yes.
The reason I was asking
Yeah.
is we only have one spot at the place that I work election day.
Okay.
And sometimes there's disabled people with placards.
Yeah.
That are waiting in their car for that spot.
Right.
And if they have 4 or 5 people in the car that are
Right.
not disabled, oh man, it really
Oh, it backs up. Yeah.
causes a problem.
Oh, yeah. And that's just, curbside voting is so tricky. I'll tell you, this new law happened because I remember when they were discussing it. This new law, or new tweak of the law, was created with the intent to discourage politiqueras from being involved in the curbside voting process down in South Texas or wherever. Yeah. I only say that because the guy who wrote it is from there, so that's all.
And a lot of times, if you just tell them that, there's no line inside,
Right.
you're welcome to, and they'll jump.
Because it'll take longer doing it curbside, yeah. And you're like, hey, you can probably just go in line if you want to wait in line.
Right.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be that
that they could have invisible disabilities and they're
Right.
it's not visible that they're
Right.
whatever, and you're going to be offending them because
Right.
you're saying, wait a minute, do I have to have my crutches? Do I have to have my cane? Do I have to have, you know?
Right. So it was brought up about the invisible disabilities as well, and that's a thing. And I think it boils down to the fact that we're not there to argue with them. If they say, I want to do curbside voting, all right, well, here you go. And you've signed your name on it, so that's for Secretary of State to figure out. Yes, sir.
You know, the other side of the coin of everybody jumping out of the van, you know, to go in and stand in line.
Right.
Okay, is that anybody that, you know, parks at curbside, you can't challenge them. So anybody can really, you know.
It's a tricky law. It's a tricky accommodation, but it's a really helpful one at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think that that's just life. And, you know, everything is a little, there's good apples and bad apples in every batch. And that's life. And I don't think it's necessarily, it's not, y'all are the people carrying, y'all are on the front lines, yeah, and y'all are carrying it out, but it's not your decision to make. You go talk to those legislators that are doing all the work. That's their job. And if, you know, this is a great opportunity, you know, you can say, this is my experience doing it, front lines. So I'm going to relay that to you as my representative. Yes, sir.
I think curbside voting kind of took over the drive-through voting.
Yeah, there's no such thing as drive-through.
Well, you know, we had drive-through voting, and now, you know, people that don't want to get out of their car can just curbside.
I'll let you have that opinion. It's not necessarily mine, but you're entitled to it. So, yes, sir. Yes.
I have a big issue where it says poll watchers may observe assistance given to voters by election officials and
Yeah.
inspect the ballot before it is deposited in the ballot box to determine if it was
In
prepared
accordance?
in accordance with the voters' wishes.
But
Yes.
the voters' wishes
I
are
think
not
the
to be
next, these two
inspected.
bullets contradict each other, and I'm not sure what exactly that means, because I sure as hell wouldn't let a poll watcher, after a voter has voted, he's walking to the DS-200 to put it in, and says, may I inspect your ballot? No, because our ballot has exactly who they voted for and everything. So I'm not sure I agree.
Well, that's the Texas law. That's the way it's written out. That is the law. That is what the legislators voted on. That is the way that they did it. Those are that's what they came to. And yeah, I don't think it's a great idea either.
If the voter says, hell no, I'm not going to.
Well, then that's up to the voter. It's up to the voter. They can say no and see what happens from there. Probably the poll watcher can just like report it, say this person didn't want me to look at their ballot. But as an election worker, I don't think you can interfere in that process. Well, I'm just letting you know, as the election worker, you cannot interfere in the poll watcher process. So how you choose to take that, it's up to you. I mean, the most the poll workers can do is just report what they see. But it's going to be a bigger pain in the ass if they say this election worker got in my way of doing it. So, I have a lot of opinions about poll watcher stuff, but what it boils down to is this is the law. I'm here to tell you what the law says, what those great and wise people at the Texas Capitol decided on. If you don't like it, you can exercise your civic engagements. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna be controversial, but.
Oh, okay. Is this
a
going to be
person-
like Geraldo? Are you going to throw a chair at me?
No.
Okay.
I might throw my phone.
That's fair. I got it.
Okay, a person who transported a total of 7 people during early, and you said cumulative, that means if in early voting they brought in 4 people, and then for election day they brought in 6 people,
Mm-hmm.
that's the
On
cumulative.
election day, they'd have to sign that form.
Okay.
Yeah. Not so much during early voting, but like you said, if the math totals up on election day to 7 or more, they got to sign it.
Okay.
Yeah. That was just math. That was almost harder than getting a chair thrown at me. You just got to take them on their word, and again, it's above your pay grade. You know, that is for the Attorney General to figure out. That is their job. They love that stuff. That is not something necessarily that you got to interrogate somebody about. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have to disclose that they brought people both times, or is it up to us to go, hey, you came last time with 5 people, now you have 4?
If you want to do it, you're like, yeah, I've seen you bring some more people. Why don't you go ahead? And if they make a big fuss about it, just like, I wouldn't even fight with them about it. Just fine, don't sign it and deal with that. Yeah, this is personal assistance. Yeah, this is just signing the oath. Reasonable accommodations. Oh, look, there's the question for the answer for that. Yes, sir.
Can a voter have more than one assistant?
That is a good question. Generally speaking, there's actually nothing in the Texas election code that says you can't have more than one assistant. And I think the arguing point would be, what is that assistant there to do that the other one can't do? So that would be the arguing point. But I don't think there's anything off the top of my head, there's nothing in the code that says it has to be just one. As long as they sign the assistant oath, you're probably good to go.
So there's a way to
If I was in your shoes and someone had 2 or 4 assistants come with them, I would have all those assistants sign a form. And then that way you're covered. And that, and if the Attorney General gets to figure all that out. Yes, sir.
There was a previous slide that you mentioned about having 2 election workers assist with
Oh, yeah. Yes.
directions for the ballot applicants. That was the previous one. But
Oh,
there
okay.
was a case at the election center I was at where
This person's trying to take my job.
there assisting one voter just because I was giving instructions for how to use the machine and the other person was translating. So we were doing two jobs in one, but also that election worker wasn't as familiar with the voting machines. So it was more so they would be able to help any other people with that same problem for the rest of the day. And then that was like the only time that I could
Okay.
that you had 2 people helping one, unless it was like curbside voting.
Well, in that law, the 2 people law, and I always get this always gets mixed up. Is it only for early voting or is it election day? The 2 election workers to help somebody. Oh, okay, so it's that, okay, easy. So, and that's really just, but it has to be one from separate part, each has a different party. So you have 2 poll workers, but they're from different parties. And that's mostly just CYA, I think. Or, making sure everybody's doing what they need to do, nothing sketchy happens. And that's, yeah, so that's why that's there. Other than that, I say, if you have the staffing available, use as many people as you need to get the job done. That's just me. They may have a different opinion. But I am the Protection Advocacy Agency, so I may outrank you on that one. Things to remember. We're doing so good, man. Just treat everybody how you want to be treated. It's not up to us to really make these detailed calls about stuff. We're just here to help people cast ballots. Make every effort not to embarrass any voter, really, or a voter with a disability. Be okay with asking questions. I don't think, like when I've been in situations where I'm needing help, I haven't been offended by more questions. Usually, if the goal is to help me or someone's trying to understand something better, I've never really been offended by, personally, maybe somebody else is. I've never been offended by trying to ask more questions to better understand things. So if you need to know more, ask. And just make sure everything is set up appropriately, and you should be good to go. And stay strong and hydrated during election season. Yes, ma'am.
Question. We have a voter that brings her child that's mentally challenged.
Okay.
The person is older.
Okay.
He doesn't vote, but he stands back.
Yeah.
He's staring at the women, at all of us, playing with himself, he'll open.
Oh.
So what do?
You ask him to leave.
We can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
you ask him to leave. Or as I tell my children, you go to the bathroom to do that. You're not doing that here. Yeah, in that situation, it is perfectly okay to ask him to leave because it is disruptive. It causes people not to feel safe. And if the mom has a problem with that, you explain to her, look, he can stand somewhere, like if you have windows, he can stand over there by the window or stand somewhere where it's not going to be a problem right here. But he also needs to know, and this is just me talking, that is not acceptable in public. So, there you go. But that's fine to do that. That's not a problem. That's a good question. Yeah. If you have questions, most likely we have answers. If we don't have the answers, we will find them for you. Our contact information is up here. My email address is mbroadway at drtx.org. Belinda is Lucio at DRTX. We have a voter rights hotline, so if you maybe have some voters that have questions, or you just have questions in general, feel free to call that number. We're here to help. And so there you go. Thank you so much for your time and your engagement. I appreciate it, and thanks for letting me. Oh, we could do the pop quiz, but y'all got them right the first time. So thank y'all.